the ongoing saga between Anthropic and the Department of War, also known as the Pentagon or the Department of Defense, and OpenAI and Trump joining the mix. There's still a lot of uncertainty as to the future of Anthropic. I'm going to talk about the legal challenge that has been started, the fact that OpenAI, ChatGPT and Sam Altman stepped into the gap to take the contract from Claude, and that has led to a massive increase in cancellations of ChatGPT with people moving over to Claude. And then Sam Altman backpedaling and saying maybe the optics on this weren't so great. There's a huge amount going on, and it's a big shake-up week. I'm very happy that more people are using Claude. I have been beating the Claude drum for the last couple of years saying, hey, you need to try Claude. Nobody did. Everyone was using OpenAI's ChatGPT, and that was the default in artificial intelligence. This week is showing people that there are other models out there that are very good, and we're seeing a large popular upsurge in the number of people using Claude, which has also led to it not really working for the last few days, which we'll talk about as well, which is very unfortunate for Anthropic because they need that goodwill. Someone in the TikTok comment saying, I switched last night. How are you finding Claude? Sally and Ben says, Claude is great, but too expensive for many of us. That is a problem. The usage limits on Claude are much tighter than on ChatGPT. On the $20 a month, if you are using the Opus 4.6 model, that's the current model that they have, you're going to get a few turns, a couple of exchanges back and forward, and then it will say, that's your lot for the day. That is a problem. It's an extreme problem. I'm on the $200 a month. That is far too much for the vast majority of people out there. The only reason I'm on that is because I build using artificial intelligence, and I do a show like this, and I do content around it. Otherwise, that's a lot of money. So we'll talk about all of this. Let's hop in and first look at the legalities of it. Anthropic have officially declared that they will be fighting the designation of a supply chain risk. So I covered all of this, but just a quick recap. It's relatively complicated, but a quick recap. Last summer, the Pentagon gave contracts to 4 AI companies. That included xAI, Grok, Google, OpenAI, who make ChatGPT, and Anthropic. Each of these contracts were, we think, around $200 million. Only one of the 4, Anthropic, was given the higher levels of security clearance to deploy systems within a classified environment. Only one of them. So Anthropic have recently flagged up ethical lines that they were not willing to cross. So Claude was used in the forced extradition or the kidnapping of Maduro back in January, and it's also being used in Iran right now. It was being used over the weekend to help with intelligence and targeting operations. So the AI model is being used in ways that you'd expect because it is the Department of War, and these companies knew this going in. When you sign a $200 million contract with the Department of War, it's going to be used for war. Anthropic said there are 2 red lines we are not willing to cross. The first is the deployment of our artificial intelligence in autonomous weaponry. They are worried about it being used when it's not quite ready and it may harm American warfighters and civilians. Anthropic and OpenAI and all of the other AI companies are okay with building killer robots as long as it doesn't hurt the American soldiers or civilians. The second red line was we do not want artificial intelligence to be used for domestic mass surveillance, spying on American citizens, profiling American citizens and people living in America. So these were the 2 red lines. Because of this, they got into an impasse with the Department of War and Pete Hegseth, and Hegseth gave them a deadline Friday at 5 p.m. saying, if you don't acquiesce and allow us to use lawful matters, then we're going to kick you out. We are going to declare you a supply chain risk, and we might even invoke the Defense Production Act and seize your assets and run the company without you, without Dario Amodei and the top brass. A lot of bluster, a lot of threats, and Anthropic said, screw you, we're not going to acquiesce. So last week, they were declared a supply chain risk. Trump got involved, yelled on Truth Social, and it all got a bit messy. Anthropic was declared a supply chain risk. America began airstrikes on Iran. And we're now in the place where all of this mess is being cleaned up, or hopefully will be cleaned up. So Anthropic are legally challenging the designation as a supply chain risk. They are saying it is unprecedented and legally unsound. Lots of lawyers and legal experts are backing them up here, basically saying as soon as this reaches the courts, this will fall apart. So let's have a quick look at the legality of it. Anthropic called the Pentagon's decision Friday to designate the company as a supply chain risk an unprecedented action, arguing it is legally unsound and would set a dangerous precedent. Normally, supply chain risk designations are reserved for foreign linked companies, so like Huawei or Kaspersky, Chinese and Russian companies. This is the first time it's been applied domestically. Anthropic said in a statement, "We are deeply saddened by these developments. We believe the designation would be both legally unsound and set a dangerous precedent for any American company that negotiates with the government." Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said Friday that the Pentagon was labeling Anthropic a supply chain risk following a dispute over the company's terms of use for its model. The DoD pushed for language that would allow it to use the technology for all lawful purposes, while Anthropic that there needed to be restrictions on mass domestic surveillance and fully autonomous lethal weapons. So this might go to the courts, and if it goes to the courts, it will probably not be upheld, but the damage will still be done in the meantime. But this is potentially going to court. So Anthropic is saying, we push back on this. We think this is unfair. So we will see whether this goes to court. If it does go to court, that's going to take time. Months from now, probably, if it has to go through the normal proceedings. And in that time, if the Department of Defense and Trump continue to pressure Anthropic and disallow them from doing dealings with any company that has dealings with the American government, or potentially also starts to label associated companies, so anyone who works with Anthropic, which could include companies like Nvidia, Amazon, if you are guilty by association, then very likely these companies will pull contracts, they will stop working with Anthropic, they will pull investment, potentially in the case of Amazon. So even if this is being legally challenged, even if Anthropic have a leg to stand on and will probably win in the courts, because of the time it takes to go to court and to fight this kind of thing, the damage is going to get done in the next few months to them commercially. They're in a very risky position right now. Tech workers from all over San Francisco put together an open letter, and I think they got 700 signatures. Hundreds of tech workers have signed an open letter urging the Department of Defense to withdraw its designation of Anthropic as a supply chain risk. So let's see how many they got. They've got 56 CEOs, including co-founder Twilio, Convergent, San Francisco Compute. I don't think Altman is on it. Sam Altman is not on it. Sam Altman did come out and defend Dario, but then he, a few hours later, took the government contract, which we'll talk about in a moment. 55 CEOs from San Francisco or around Silicon Valley. Additional signatories, 121. These are VPOs, CTOs, etc. A few hundred people. Not a huge amount of support, considering how many people are working in the industry. The letter includes signatories from major tech companies and venture capital firms, including OpenAI, Slack, IBM, Cursor, Salesforce, and more. Let's see who signed it from OpenAI. There's a few of them. Chief Futurist at OpenAI, Head of Product Operations, Head of Technical Staff, and the VP of Global Impact. Loads of them. There's at least 47 signatories from OpenAI, but not Sam Altman. That's fair because he's caught up in all of this. I think what is really risky here, and this is why Sam Altman also defended Dario and defended Anthropic, was if the government goes around with this kind of power to declare any tech company that they don't particularly like dealing with a supply chain risk, that is unprecedented, and that is very scary if you're trying to run a private enterprise in the US, knowing that suddenly all of the work that you put in could be ripped away from you. Potentially even the Defense Production Act could be invoked and you could have your assets stripped from you, is terrifying. I think there's also a secondary point here that Sam Altman and all of the other AI companies, they need this market to remain stable. Actually, we can talk about this right now. OpenAI have just closed the largest ever private round of funding. It was $110 billion. And I've got a chart on screen that shows like the previous largest US venture capital deals ever. The previous largest was 40 billion, which was also OpenAI, which was last year. The next one down is Anthropic, 30 billion, which just happened last month as well. And then we have other companies down here. But this gives you an idea of the scale of the money that's still being pumped into artificial intelligence. This is by far the largest deal ever been done in private venture capital, 110 billion. Sam Altman knows that if Anthropic are removed from the game, if Anthropic have the rug pulled from underneath them, this is going to add uncertainty, chaos into the market. So he knows that in order for money like this to continue flowing into artificial intelligence, it needs to be a good bet. So this 110 billion that's just been pumped into OpenAI, an insane amount of money. If the investors think that there is a chance that all of that money is wasted because Trump throws a hissy fit and Pete Hegseth gets into a dick swinging contest with an AI company and declares it a supply chain risk, that makes this kind of money being invested into artificial intelligence very risky. Sam Altman needs this. He would much prefer that everything is a bit more stable, even if it means Anthropic and Dario continues to exist as a company. They need that stability. It can't be seen as this kind of Wild West industry where suddenly your multi-billion dollar company can cease to exist overnight because of some politicians. That's why I believe he was stepping in, not out the kind of his heart, but the stability of the industry as a whole. I'm going to hop over to some questions, and then we're going to look at OpenAI's actions over the last few days and what that has led to happening, which is a huge amount of ChatGPT cancellations and a lot of shifting over to Claude. So I've got a few people in comments already saying I switched. I think US government decided to cut out Anthropic because they couldn't control them. Yeah, basically. Although interestingly, OpenAI have put together a contract with the Department of War. We'll talk about it in a moment, which is pretty similar to the Anthropic contract, but potentially can't be enforced. So we're going to talk about what that looks like. I wouldn't be that surprised if this is a lot more basic than kind of contractual language and the ethical lines and the philosophy of it. I think Dario Amodei, the head of Anthropic, has basically rubbed them the wrong way. Anthropic are quite high-minded and a little heavy-handed in their ethics. I think they've probably just pissed off some people, including Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon. And yes, we're going to have all this debate about the contractual language and the ethics of it all, but I think they just don't like each other. I think it's probably more basic. That is obviously absolutely speculation, but Dario is very strong in his beliefs, and I can imagine him rubbing them the wrong way. Let's put it that way. What the hell did Anthropic think was going to happen? Yeah, it's a fair point. What is impressive, though, is that AI companies can stand toe-to-toe with the US government. But for them even to consider that possibility gives an idea of the power of these companies and the amount of money that's been thrown at them and how they underpin everything. So even in the case of Anthropic, they have been immediately banned from all federal departments, but Trump has given the Department of War 6 months to untangle it, which is fair. But I think that's also breathing room to come up with some kind of deal in the same way that they did with TikTok. So it's like, we're banning TikTok. We've pushed the ban back a little bit, and they kept pushing it back until a deal could be made behind doors. I think we're going to see something very similar here, and that 6 months is to allow everything to settle down, everything to get less heated, and for then some kind of deal to be done in the background. And maybe the investors at Anthropic will want Dario removed and somebody a bit more compliant put in place, potentially, so that can continue to happen. Although Anthropic without Dario Amodei would be... I can't imagine what that would even look like. So OpenAI got the government contract. Yes, they did. So they already had government contracts. Back last summer, the 4 large labs got government contracts, all around 200 million from the Pentagon. So Google, xAI, OpenAI and Anthropic all got these contracts, bring them in to see what they could do for the Department of War, basically. What's happened now is that OpenAI is that they have stepped in to take what Anthropic had been given. I don't know if that necessarily means they've got another 200 million, potentially. I've seen a lot of speculation about that with people saying, oh, they stole their $200 million contract. We don't really know that. On February the 28th, they didn't wait. The body wasn't even cold. And they stepped in. They're like, yeah, we'll do it. So on the 28th, they posted this. Yesterday, we reached an agreement with the Department of War on deploying advanced AI systems in classified environments. This is the designation or the area that only Anthropic had previously got access to, the classified environment. So all 4 companies were bought in last summer. Only Anthropic was bumped up to being able to work in classified environments. OpenAI has now got in, and OpenAI are saying, oh, we want to make sure that all the other AI companies can be included in this as well. So that, again, this is for the good of the industry. This is trying to level everything out. We think that our deployment has more guardrails than any previous agreement for classified AI deployments, including Anthropic's. Here's why. Now, presumably, these agreements were also classified, so I don't know how they know that. But we covered this on the live yesterday. So OpenAI have stepped in, which actually brings us to our next point. They stepped in, took the work from Anthropic, who were being forced out. That has led immediately to a lot of people uninstalling ChatGPT, a lot of anger against OpenAI, ChatGPT and Sam Altman. So apparently ChatGPT uninstalls skyrocketed 295% after the OpenAI Pentagon deal. Now again, they already had a deal with the Pentagon. They already were brought in last summer, but nobody paid any attention then. But now, because this is a lot more public, this is something that people are actually noticing, there has been a spike. So negative sentiment flooded the App Store with 1-star reviews for ChatGPT, increasing by 775% in one day. So they're getting review bombed, basically. And I've had a lot of people in my comments on TikTok and Instagram and stuff saying, hey, everybody, let's go and give them 1-star reviews. There's this movement, QuitChatGPT, hashtag QuitChatGPT. Lots of people are moving over to Claude. They have lost a lot of public goodwill because this has been an incredibly public event. People like Katy have moved over to Claude. She tweeted that she's got an annual subscription on Claude. I've never really seen this kind of public outrage against an artificial intelligence company. Generally, the public is negative towards pretty much all AI companies. But this is very targeted on ChatGPT, OpenAI, and then a lot of goodwill is going to Anthropic. Now, we have to remember that Anthropic, yes, they're the good guys in this story. They still took a $200 million Department of War contract. They are still okay working on autonomous weapons. They are still okay working on surveillance, but they have red lines about autonomous weapons, which might be dangerous to American warfighters and civilians, and mass domestic surveillance. So they're absolutely fine using kill bots on other people outside of America, absolutely fine with surveillance outside of America. So this isn't I've seen a lot of people posit this as Anthropic are the good guys and they don't want to use AI in war, and they want to make sure AI is peaceful and is not used for all these nefarious deeds. No, they're happy with those things. They just want to make sure it doesn't harm Americans. If it's harming other people, if it's harming people in the Middle East, if it's harming people in China and Russia, fine, absolutely fine. So we do need to be careful here. So US uninstalls of ChatGPT mobile app has surged 300% on February the 28th. This is according to Sensor Tower. The spike represents a significant departure from ChatGPT's average daily install rate of 9%. That's quite a lot, recorded over the previous 30 days. Simultaneously, US downloads of the app fell 13% on Saturday and an additional 5% on Sunday. Negative sentiment was further reflected in the app's rating, where 1-star reviews increased by 775% on Saturday. So the makers of Claude, the primary competitor, I don't agree with that, saw downloads for its Claude app rise 51% on Saturday after the company publicly declined to partner with the Defense Department. That is incorrect. They were already partnered with the Defense Department. They were trying to draw red lines. So this article is not very accurate, but we've got the numbers. Anthropic cited concerns regarding domestic surveillance and the safety of fully autonomous weaponry as the reasons for refusing the deal. That is fair, at least. Claude hit number 1 in the US App Store. I think it was number 3 here in the UK, maybe number 2. Generally, it's just not on the charts at all. So you sitting here watching this live or watching this on social media later, you know what Claude is. No one else does. You go and ask someone in the street, like, hey, do you use Claude? And they'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And this was actually a problem during the Super Bowl, because Claude had that advert, which is a very funny advert, lambasting OpenAI for adding advertisements into ChatGPT. But the main reaction in the market research that was done afterwards was, what the hell is Claude? People were confused about what it was. This is the first time Claude is getting its moment. GPT of its moment, and that's why it's got 900 million users. Gemini from Google had its moment with Nano Banana, and it spiked and everyone downloaded it. This is the first time Claude has had popular recognition, which is cool because Claude is fantastic. It is my favorite model. What I want to talk about, though, is because of all of this new interest, Claude hasn't worked for the last couple of days. If you use Claude on a daily basis, you've probably been annoyed. All these new people installing the app means that their servers have been overloaded. I've seen a lot of speculation about why this is. We've got elevated errors on Opus 6 again, 4.6 again. I've seen a lot of speculation. Apparently a data center was hit in Dubai or Bahrain by an Iranian missile. So people are like, oh my God, the Iranians are attacking Claude. I don't think it's that. I saw speculation that the Department of War have launched a DDoS, a dedicated denial of service attack, and taken down the servers. No, I don't think it's that. I think it's just they are not ready for the amount of people who were suddenly rushing to install Claude. It's never been a popular app. The number of users of Claude are in the tens of millions rather than in the hundreds of millions. So I think that they've just been hammered with the demand and they were not ready for it. So it's a good reason, but it's still very frustrating. And the problem with this is if you are fleeing from ChatGPT for whatever reason, and you're coming over to Claude and you're excited to use Claude, and your first experience of Claude is, oh, sorry, it's not working right now, come back later. That's a really negative experience, and a lot of people are going to bounce off. So unfortunately, Anthropic have not been able to capitalize on this fully. What they have done is they've added the ability to export your memories from ChatGPT over into Claude. So the memory, long-term memory, often acts as the stickiness for a consumer artificial intelligence because it knows everything about you. It builds an idea of who you are, what you're into, what business you do, what work you do. And then it can answer with all of that context already. A few days ago, they released a prompt which allowed you to import the memories. I think it's claude.com. There it is. Import memory. They made this page very quickly, which allows you to switch to Claude without starting over. Oh, they still haven't updated this. At that time, I was like, guys, you need to make this available on your free plans. If you don't make this available on your free plans, this is not going to work. Because initially, you could pull over your memories, but you had to do it onto a paid plan. Stupid. They have now, as of a few hours ago, the idea, memory is now available on the free plan. We've made it easier to import saved memories into Claude and export them whenever you want. So they're allowing people who are fleeing ChatGPT to export their memories, import them into Claude, even in the free plan, so they can try out Claude. Very clever. Unfortunately, they need to get their server problems under control because people are going to bounce off and they'll say, yeah, I tried that Claude thing, but it doesn't work. It's no good, which is an issue. I did see somebody saying that, oh, this is because Claude vibe code. Famously, Anthropic always talking about how they actually use Claude to build their tools. They use Claude Code to build Claude Cowork. They use Claude Code to help with their next model release. So they vibe code their next releases. Obviously, it's a bit more complicated than that, but that has been turned on them now by people saying, this is what happens when you vibe code everything. It falls to pieces. Look, you can't deal with it. Your servers are collapsing. This is only happening with you because you're vibe coding and you're using Claude Code. I want to push back on this because look, this is 99.33% uptime on Claude. The other one's got the API is 99.52. Claude Code is 99.66. So the API uptime on OpenAI is 99.75. ChatGPT is 98.86. And you can see all of these are outages and temporary problems, etc. So this is not abnormal. And it's not caused by vibe coding. This is just caused by servers being overloaded. It's a lot less exciting, unfortunately. Thank you for the tips, Carl. Super useful. Been thinking about cancelling ChatGPT and this clinches it. Yeah, a lot of people are moving over right now. I would say go and try Claude. I've been beating the drum for Claude for years now, telling people go and use Claude. It's really good. No one ever did. I'm glad there's a reason for people to do it now. I wish it wasn't tied up with them potentially ceasing to exist a few months from now. Go and give it a go. Their servers are being overloaded right now because everyone's hopping over, so be patient. It might take a few days before you can use it properly. Hopefully not. Give it a task that you've tried to do on ChatGPT, but maybe ChatGPT couldn't do it, a work task or whatever it is. Give it to Claude and you'll probably be surprised when Claude just blitzes its way through the task. It's really good. It's a smart model. You can also use Claude Code, and Claude Code is still the best building tool out there. I wanted to show you some free courses as well. SkillJar. So if you go to anthropic.skilljar.com, there's a bunch of courses on here. These come with certification as well. So if you want a certificate for LinkedIn, for your job, or whatever it is, you can do it here. So Claude 101 is the first one. I don't know why I've got them in the wrong order. It's free and you get certification at the end. They also have AI fluency, API, MCP, MCP advanced, building on cloud, Vertex AI, etc. Agents at the bottom. So a good resource is anthropic.skilljar.com. Totally free and you get certification on them as well. I'm going to hop over to some questions. Paprika says, hey, the webinar. Tonight I'm giving a webinar at 6 p.m. London time. If you go to aiwithkyle.com/webinar, you can sign up, totally free. I'm going to be talking about giving artificial intelligence workshops to businesses, teaching businesses how they can use artificial intelligence. You can make very good money from doing this. I charge about £2,000 per hour for giving a workshop. The most I've charged is $4,000 for 1 hour. So there's very good money to be made. I'll be talking about how you don't need a PhD in machine learning. You don't need a computer science degree. What you're going to be doing is connecting your world, your domain, your niche, your industry, connecting that with what you know about artificial intelligence and helping people, non-technical people, with the specifics of how AI can aid them in their jobs on a daily basis. So you're going to be combining your industry knowledge with your AI knowledge, and in between, that's where kind of the secret sauce is, and that's going to allow you to provide really valuable workshops. So you're not going to be giving technical workshops, it's teaching a technical skill, but we're going to keep it at a non-technical level for all of the people who really need to get on board with what artificial intelligence can do for them. And you go and teach businesses, because businesses can pay good money for you to go and do that. You can do one-on-one, it's a lot more fiddly. So for example, when I got paid $4,000 for 1 hour for giving a 1 hour workshop, that was because there were 400 people in the room. So that's actually only $10 per person per hour. So I talk about what kind of stuff you're going to teach them, how to get comfortable with public speaking, because that's how you can unlock much larger payments, and how to get clients, how you're going to actually do outreach, how you're going to get clients signing up. So I'm going to be talking about all of that tonight at 6 p.m. London time. If you cannot make it, you can get the recording. Sign up at aiwithcarl.com/webinar. There's one tonight at 6 p.m. and I'm doing another one on Thursday at 6 p.m. Both free, and I will send out the recordings the next day as well. Thank you, Paprika, for reminding me of that, because I'd totally forgotten. And it's an important one to talk about. Why is ChatGPT 5.1 removed? Yeah, it's been removed from the app version of ChatGPT on the 11th of March. It will still be in the API. So GPT 5.1. So basically they are getting rid of 5.1 to push people towards 5.2, although 5.3 is meant to be out soon, but 5.2 and 5.3 are a lot more dry. They're good if you're doing work, but if you want kind of someone to talk to, someone to discuss ideas with, they're a little bit dry. 5.3 I've mainly been using through Codex, which is a coding platform, so that's absolutely fine. I don't need it to discuss things, I need it to do work for me. But that is the model that is coming to ChatGPT. So 5.1 is being deprecated. It will still be in the API though, so you can still get access to it. It's just a bit more of a pain. Morning, Doug. Yeah, on the plus side, Anthropic is having its best week of growth in its history. Yeah, we covered this. It's bittersweet. They're having their best week in history because they potentially won't exist anymore, because they stood up to the government. It's great that people are getting to use it. It's great that people are realizing how powerful Claude is. However, we have Claude 6 months from now. I don't know. I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, they should just move to Europe. It's not feasible, unfortunately, because it's not just the people. Yes, they have very talented researchers, 100%, but you also need the infrastructure to build models on. So you need the cloud compute, you need GPUs, which come from NVIDIA. If you are a supply chain risk and the US government has labeled you basically as a company that no one should do business with, NVIDIA might stop selling chips to Anthropic, so where they're going to get their GPUs. They might not be able to use things like AWS, which is currently their cloud hosting. Companies like Amazon, who are invested into Anthropic, might pull their money out as part of this recent OpenAI investment, the largest ever investment in history. It's a private venture capital deal. Some of this is Amazon. So Amazon are spreading out their bets. They've got money invested in OpenAI. They've got money invested in Anthropic. Previously, they were mainly in on Anthropic. That is no longer the case anymore. They're also in on OpenAI. So spreading their bets out here. So moving to Europe, yes, you can move the people, but you need the infrastructure. That's going to be the cloud computing. That's going to be the GPUs, so you can continue to build bigger models. You also need money. Part of the reason why they're in Silicon Valley is because they've got access to venture capital money. The 3 largest rounds ever have all happened in the last year. And they were Anthropic last month for 30 billion, OpenAI a year ago, March 2025, for 40 billion, and OpenAI a few weeks ago for 110 billion, which is more than all of these ones put together. That's what you have access to when you're in America. You've got investment as well. In Europe, they're building a new model. Where is it? Is it Switzerland or Germany? Some money's been earmarked for it, but it's in the hundreds of millions. We're not working in the millions anymore. This requires billions and billions of dollars to remain competitive against the American labs and the Chinese labs. So Europe is basically out of the game. It's a lovely idea that we would invite Anthropic and the researchers over here, but unless they are given the infrastructure and the money to build, there's not a huge amount they can do, sadly. Would it surprise you if Amazon bought OpenAI to integrate into their ecosystem? Yes, they can't afford them. Simply put, they wouldn't be able to afford them. Amazon actually have really good AI. It's not publicly available. So they have AI on their AWS system. That's where they're focusing all of their work. So they have models already, their own models. Bizarrely, they're ahead of Microsoft. Microsoft doesn't have its own models. They have MAI, which was a research preview. They never got it out there. Whereas Amazon actually have models. It's just we don't hear of them. Nova is their model. In the public, nobody's heard of it because we don't use AWS. So they're building AIs specifically for their customers, which is really smart. And they're probably going to make a huge amount of money because it's boring, useful stuff happening in the back end. Whereas OpenAI are doing B2C, they're doing public. It's wide, it's broad, it's 900 million users, most of whom are not paying anything. So I think Amazon are fine on the AI front. They're doing boring and profitable artificial intelligence instead of exciting and hugely money draining like OpenAI. Yeah, more data centers, more power plants. But yep, that's another restriction in Europe, electricity. We just don't have enough. We don't have enough data centers. We don't have enough power. Money's being put into it, but we needed that infrastructure like yesterday, unfortunately. I find Claude much better than Chat, says Mad Marketing. Yep. Can you create agents in Claude? So it doesn't have an agent mode in the same way that ChatGPT does. ChatGPT has directly an agent mode. The ChatGPT agent mode is a bit crap though. I don't use it. You'll probably see I've got all my credits left. Where is it? So more, there it is, hidden away. I have 400 credits left because I don't use it. For more agentic work, you're probably going to use Claude Code instead of Claude itself, and Cowork. So it's a little confusing. Cowork is a desktop application which is on your computer, which can take control of your computer. It can make folders, move things around, navigate to web pages, click around the web pages, download things. It can do work for you basically. So it acts agentically and it connects to Chrome via a little plugin. I've been using this over the weekend to do my bookkeeping. So every 3 months or so, my bookkeeper sends me an Excel sheet which has all the invoices that they need to complete my books. Those invoices are going to be in my inbox. Half of them are probably in my Gmail. I need to find them, download them, stick them in a folder, then send them off to my bookkeeper. But half of them are on websites. My ChatGPT invoices are on the website. My Zapier invoices are on the website. I set up Cowork and I said, hey, here is an Excel sheet. It has all of the invoices you need to find. It has the invoice number, it has the amount. You are going to go into my Gmail, find the invoices, download them. You are then going to go and log into all of these different services. Log into my ChatGPT, into my Zapier, go to the billing, download the invoices and compile it all in one place, check that all against the running list that I've been given for my bookkeeper, batch them all up and send them to my bookkeeper. Cowork is fantastic for that kind of job where otherwise you would be sitting at your computer doing that manually. Cowork can just take over. Really cool. If you want to do any other kind of agentic work where you want it in the background, you're not even thinking about it, it's hosted somewhere, then you can use Claude Code to build those agents, no problem. Cowork has actually added scheduled tasks as of last week. If you have a computer that is always on, you can have Cowork running overnight, doing stuff, doing research, putting things together, doing recurring tasks for you. So what is happening right now is a lot of companies saw the popularity of OpenClaw. They saw how much people wanted a proactive, always-on assistant, and they are rushing into that space now. Cowork is part of that push, and they've added scheduled tasks, unified memory, and remote, the ability to talk to Claude Code from your telephone. So Anthropic are building out an ecosystem like OpenClaw. They're not the only ones. Perplexity has released Perplexity Computer. Tried it yesterday, not very good. Manus have Manus Agent, it's okay. None of them are quite as good as OpenClaw or the Claude Cowork and Claude Code ecosystem. So if you want agentic stuff, you'll be using Claude Code and Claude Cowork, and they're very good. And you can connect to Skills and MCP and all of that good stuff. Kyle, have you looked at Anthropic's corporate structure as a PBC? No, I have not. It's above my pay grade. How did you get comfy with public speaking when you were uncomfortable before? So I'm naturally incredibly introverted. What I'm doing right now, I should not be able to do. I like to be behind the camera, literally. I used to work in film and TV as a producer. I was behind the camera. I like to play around with computers. I like to build systems. I was never the forward-facing person. In part, it was because I had to. I was setting up a business and there were 3 of us and we were about to launch something. And one of us, who was going to be the front of the business, unfortunately contracted cancer. So he was unable to use the energy required to get on camera, to get on stage, because he needed to instead use that for his health. So that was the tipping point where it's like, oh shit, we need somebody to get on camera. So I was like, okay, cool, I will do that. I hated it and I was terrible at it and I was terrified. Every time I had to record a video, it would take hours of procrastination, and then I'd finally do it and not look at it and be like, I hate this, and get it out the door. Same with getting up on stage. I started with giving workshops or talking to 5 people at a time, and my heart racing. Like once or twice I was sick before going up on stage because it would bring so much fear to me. Like anything in life, the more you do it, the better you get at it. If you just do something again and again, you become better at it. There aren't really any shortcuts. The only thing that I would say is that it's quite difficult to arrange regular public speaking unless you join something like Toastmasters or some kind of course or club about public speaking. It's all well and good me saying, go and talk to 5 people, then go and talk to 10 people, then go and talk to 15 people, and you'll get better at it. That's difficult to arrange. So what I highly recommend is you start by talking to camera. You start by pulling out your phone and talking about whatever it is. What I highly recommend is becoming the person in your space who talks about artificial intelligence. There are plenty of people who talk generally about AI. That's a busy market. You don't necessarily want to be there. There are very few people who will talk specifically about AI for a subset of people. It could be artificial intelligence for doctors, for the medical world. What should doctors be aware of? How should they use AI? How should they not use AI? What kind of news should they be aware of and developments? If you carve out your space and become that communicator, that's a really powerful position. The good thing about short form video is it allows you to practice your ideas. So you might not be standing in front of 100 people, but you are still practicing the same part of your brain, being able to explain and deliver concepts succinctly. I was about to say without umming and erring too much. There's always a problem when I talk about public speaking, I start tripping over myself. But the short form video just gives you repetitions in a way that forcing yourself up onto stage is quite difficult to get. You need a balance of the two. You start with short form video, you use that to get the reps, communicating the ideas that are important to you, and then you start to get smaller speaking gigs and you work up from there. I highly recommend people do workshops. One of the things I'm talking about tonight in my webinar, the third part, I give 3 lessons during this webinar, and the third one is all about public speaking. So I talk about this stuff later tonight. So it's 6 p.m. UK time. But one of the great things about giving workshops instead of keynote speeches is that in a workshop, you're actually only speaking about half of the time. So you get paid for the hour, you get paid for the 3 hours, however long the workshop is. You are probably talking for 40, 50% of that. Workshops you facilitate. So it's more about them than it is about you. The attention shouldn't always be on you. The attention should be on them and their skill acquisition. It's a clever way to get used to public speaking because you are facilitating a room. Half of the time they're doing exercises and you're walking around chatting to them. So I would say that workshops, rather than full-on TED Talk style speaking, that is another way to ease your way into public speaking. In general, public speaking is a very valuable skill. It always has been, because so many people hate it. So you get paid very well for being able to do it. It also allows you to command attention, to build audiences. But I think increasingly in the world of artificial intelligence, being able to get up on stage physically in front of people is going to come at a higher and higher premium. More and more people are going to rely on AI avatars. They're going to rely on faceless video. They're going to not communicate with one another. So if you can put yourself in a position where you are communicating, you're able to get on stage, you're able to talk, you're able to pass ideas to people, that puts you in a really good position. I think there's going to be more emphasis on physical events and being in a physical space as it becomes harder and harder to trust what it is we see. I've been looking at doing AI avatars recently, and I'm just going to stick to this raw, messy type instead. Kyle, are you pre-recorded? If you are, I'm reporting you. Carla, you respond to my message now. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to block you for being an arsehole. There you go. A pre-recorded person can't call you an arsehole. Which Chinese LLM do you think is good? I think they're all pretty good. We're about to get DeepSeek 4 soon. Qwen's good. Kimi's good. They're solid models, honestly. I don't personally use them apart from as local models. I'm using Qwen. I still use Claude. Claude is my daily driver. Claude is still better. The Chinese models are very good, especially because they're open source. They are not better. They're always lagging behind. Demis Hassabis at Davos said the Chinese models are extremely good, but they're generally about 6 months behind. We cannot rest because they're always kind of chomping at our heels. I don't personally use them day to day, except for local LLMs. I use Claude. Ophelia doesn't respond to TikTok chat. We are peasants. Once the market crashes, Amazon will be able to buy OpenAI. That's a good point, yeah. If there's a fire sale, then do you know who's going to be in a good position? Google. Google have a war chest. I've been banging on about this for the last year or so. Google are in a fantastic position because they have the hardware, the TPUs. They make their own TPUs. They're not reliant on NVIDIA. They have cloud infrastructure, Google Cloud. They have data, all of our search data. They have indexed the whole internet. They have indexed video content, YouTube, and audio content. They have indexed images via Google Image. That could be used for training models. They have good models now. They have the best image model, and they have a pretty good text model, Gemini. They have the application layer. I think 70-80% of the world uses Chrome on their browser. About 70% of the world is Android on their telephones. They're even getting Gemini inside of Siri, so they're infiltrating into the iOS ecosystem too. They have users, billions of users, and they have money. So they're in a really good position to, if it goes poorly for OpenAI and Anthropic and the other private companies, Google can sop up what's left. So I'm bullish on Google. I want to use AI Claude to create algorithms to trade stocks. Do you have any good places to start? I would say be very careful because AIs tend to be agreeable and they tend to jazz you up and they will tell you that, oh, that's a great idea. If you're creating algorithms and then testing them all, then that will help. For example, I use AI to help me come up with adverts, so meta adverts, and then I make them en masse, test which ones work, and then kill the losers. If you're doing something similar with trading algorithms, potentially it can work because it can help you in that ideation and the initial creation phase. I just wouldn't give a trading account to an AI and let it rip. Base 44 AI app builder, it's okay. It got acquired by Wix. It's fine. I think if you're using Wix, absolutely, go ahead and use it. It's not as good as Lovable. It's not as good as Replit, and it's certainly not as good as Claude Code or Codex or Anti-Gravity or any of the other softwares, but it's fine. I'm not sure why you'd use Base 44 when there are many other platforms available, unless you are happening to build a website in Wix. How close are Claude and Gemini in capabilities? Claude blows Gemini out of the water. Gemini's great. It's a good model. The problem is, this is no longer... I did a news about this the other day. I tried Gemini 3.1 Pro. Was that the one they released last week? And it's a good model, but increasingly the model itself is not that important. Gemini, Claude, Open and ChatGPT 5.2 or whatever, they're all good. They're all very smart models and they are capable of a lot of things. Increasingly though, it's about what harness we put them in. Earlier, somebody asked, what can Claude do with agents? I talked about Claude Code and Claude Cowork. Increasingly, it's about the harnesses. It's what we put on the model to allow it to do work for us. That's more important because we are moving from to 2025 where we basically talked to AIs and it talked back to us. It's chat. It's a basic way to use AI. Increasingly, though, we're able to just get the AI to do stuff for us. So 2025, we'd go to Claude and say, I want a marketing plan for my social media. This is what I'm thinking. And it'd be able to discuss with me and give me a report that I could then go off and do. Nothing wrong with that. We're moving to a point, though, where if I go and do that with Claude, it will say, okay, let's put together a plan. And these are the bits that I can build out for you. And we'll get this stuff hosted here and we'll build these scrapers. And let me set up the API to allow you to auto post. And then we're going to set up a drafting system. It will start to build out that system for you. So we're shifting from talking to doing. So Gemini is a good model. That is no longer enough because Gemini is not attached to good harnesses. Unlike Claude, which is connected to Claude Code and Cowork. Claude Code is probably the best harness out there. It just gets shit done, basically. Gemini are lacking that component in their ecosystem right now, which means it's less useful. I think the model, they're collapsing, and they're all very good. They're getting to, or in some cases, smarter than us anyway. So increasingly, it's hard for us to differentiate how good they are. It's all about this harness. What can the model do? And Gemini can't do very much, unfortunately. I thought I blocked this guy. Is he back? Or was it a different one? What's going on? Oh, I did block him. There we go. I said it before, Kyle, but I very much appreciate the real, authentic Kyle unscripted. Yeah. Yeah, I looked at AI avatars. I looked at because I saw some other people using them, and I was like, oh, the appeal of being able to make 20 videos and for people to not know the difference. You get the appeal of it because then I get the views, then they get to my email list, and then I make more money. It's lazy, but it is appealing. But I tried them out and I made a few and I watched them and I was like, oh, I wouldn't watch this. This just feels gross. So for me, it doesn't really work. And I'd much rather do what I'm doing now, which is a lot more real. That comes with my ums and ers. It comes with me swearing. It comes with me saying the wrong thing sometimes, but it is what it is. We can't all be right all the time. What niche of business need AI teaching the most? Teach the niche that you already know. It's not about the main job when you're teaching a workshop, showing people how to use artificial intelligence, is to translate into their language why they need to pay attention. If you've been working in a particular industry for a certain amount of time, you know that language. You are able to tell stories, use metaphors that make sense for them, understand their problems and how AI can help them. And that understanding is what's going to make it really valuable. Instead of saying, oh, what's the best industry? The best industry is going to depend on you and which one you can best serve. I could say, oh, the best industry right now is lawyers. You should go and talk to lawyers. But if you do not come from a legal background, you're not necessarily going to have the language, the stories, the metaphors, the similes, the ability to cross the divide and explain to them why they need this stuff. So it's not about the technicals. It is about that communicative ability and bridging between those worlds. There are too many technical people out there who are going out and giving workshops. It does not work because it needs to be in the language of the people that you're talking to. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to make that emotional connection. And that's what most of it is helping them work through psychological and emotional blocks. It's not about, hey, these are the new features in ChatGPT you should be checking out. It is about, hey, this is new technology. It's important. You need to pay attention. This is like the internet. It's that kind of scale. I understand that there might be some concerns that you have about what this means for your job, about the ethics of it, about the training data. It's working through those kind of problems with a lot of people. So yes, everyone who's on this live right now, you guys use AI. You don't need that level of handholding through the first stages. A lot of people still do. Most people are still at that stage where they have concerns about AI, or they are at most using it as a Google replacement. And that's it. We just need to show them along the path. And that is more psychological than it is technical. So it's about being able to talk to them and understand their language more than it is knowing about artificial intelligence. So the best niche is the industry that you already know. Can you talk more about Perplexity Computer to those who are not AI or code savvy compared to others? I used it yesterday for the first time. And I was not impressed. I don't think it's very good. I'm also a little bit spoiled because I use Claude Code. So I'm a little bit spoiled in this situation. Perplexity are a weird one. They're a company whose unique selling point used to be the fact that they sourced their information. So a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, when we used ChatGPT and when we used any other AI, it would just make stuff up. It would very confidently make stuff up and it would not source where it got that information from. And if you pushed it, if you said, why are you saying that doesn't sound right? It'd be like, oh God, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I just made that up. That was a huge problem 2 years ago. Perplexity came into the market and they created a model that would use web search to go and get information, which didn't come to ChatGPT until later. It would use web search, compile it all, and then use chain of thought to come up with an answer. That was a unique selling point at the time because you could trust Perplexity. It would tell you these are the 30 sources, add footnotes. That was a revelation at the time. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, everyone, they added web search and deep research modes, which add the footnotes. So they removed what was unique about Perplexity by putting it into their own chat interfaces. So Perplexity for the last year or so, I've been floundering around and I see lots of people asking like, what's Perplexity for? And I think Perplexity have been trying to work that answer out for themselves. They have pushed out the door Perplexity Computer, I think as a response to all of the OpenClaw excitement they were seeing. I used it. It's not very good. It's slow. It's not very powerful. And so I don't think much of it. If you are going to use an agent like that, use Claude Cowork, although there are limitations to using Claude Cowork depending on what plan you have. But at the moment, I can't really recommend Perplexity Computer. I will continue to play around with it. But right now, I think it's trying to be OpenClaw but not very well. If you had a 13-year-old boy and wanted him to get into AI, how would you get him started? It's tricky with AI. It's like asking, hey, how do I get my kid into internet? Or how do I get my kid into computers? It's a big question because it's such a wide topic. Because AI, you can learn how AI works. If you want to do that, I've put together a few resources on my website. If you go to aiwithkyle.com, go to the resources hub, the ultimate AI learning guide. This walks you through, starting with fun videos, walks you through how AI works at a base level. Most of us don't need to know that though, in the same way that we don't know how the internet works at a base level, but we use it every day. Most of us don't know how a car engine works, yet we drive. If he is younger, so he's either 13 or he's in year 13, have him start building stuff. I think that is the highest impact activity you can do right now. So yesterday, a 17-year-old just sold his startup. MyFitnessPal has acquired Cal AI, the viral calorie app built by teens. Cal AI is the AI calorie counting app started by two high school teenagers that soared to 15 million downloads and over 30 million in annual revenue in 2 years. I think he was 17 years old. I don't know how much they bought it for, but if it had 30 million revenue, they've bought it for a lot of money. So Cal AI, a couple of years ago, was a bit of a joke because what you do with it is you take photos of your plate, it sends it to ChatGPT or whatever in the background, and ChatGPT says how many calories is in it. Does it work? No, no, not really. So it's a ChatGPT wrapper, basically, that sends to a model. Maybe it has some information in the background, but it's pretty inaccurate. Doesn't matter. Does not matter. They were making 30 million a year in annual revenue. I think this is an outlier, but being able to build stuff is going to be important moving forward. We're moving from a world where people discuss stuff. You go to a meeting and everybody discusses and makes a plan, and then we're like, okay, next Friday we'll meet up and we'll discuss how much further we've got. That's gone. We are leaving that world behind. Instead, if you have an idea, build the idea, show people what your idea is like, and then go from there. So that's going to be in jobs and entrepreneurship as well. If he is in year 13, get him building on something like Lovable is a good platform to get started. Alternative is Google AI Studio, which is free. Go to Google AI Studio and then into build. This is basically a free version of Lovable. You just have a chat interface. I want to build a calorie counting app that looks at photos and guesses the calories. How do we do this? Boom. And then I will say build. We start to build. I would just get him creating because it's an amazing opportunity right now. This lives at the junction between the technicals, being able to build, being able to create, but also entrepreneurship and marketing as well. So it's a very exciting place to be. Minimax 2.5. I'm calling back through the questions. I've started working on web apps for my students. Would never have dared to do that if not for AI LLMs. Yep, 100%. Haven't tried Claude yet because of tokens. I'm learning with Codex right now is a phenomenal deal. So Codex has that's not what I wanted. Codex has an app. If you've got Mac OS, you can download this Codex app. The Codex app is really good. This is from OpenAI and it uses GPT Codex 5.3. Now, it's available on the free plan, but what I'd recommend is spending $20 a month, getting a $20 a month paid plan, because that gives you a lot of tokens, very generous, unlike Claude Code. Also, until April, you've got about a month. They're doing double tokens on the paid plan. For the rest of March, you'll have a huge amount of tokens. Codex is extremely good. I've been using it instead of Claude Code for the last couple of weeks, and it has been knocking tasks out of the park. I'd recommend this as well. There's a discussion. I've lost track of it, so I'm scrolling through. What are the best AI tutorials? I just found Anthropic's Academy. I have a lot. It depends what you want to do. On my website, aiwithkyle.com, I've got a 10-week free course on how to start a business using AI. So it's coming up with business ideas, how you build using vibe coding. I've also got a free training here, masterclass on how to start giving AI workshops. So talking about AI, teaching AI, and a bunch of other things. This is mainly about building or starting businesses using artificial intelligence. There's also about 100 playbooks in here. So I've got one on prompt engineering, building public SEO micro tools. Let's filter them by something. AI fundamentals, prompt engineering, personal productivity, getting started with AI in business, more prompting big questions in AI. There are 100 or so. These are all handwritten over the last couple of years. Despite the sheer amount of them, I wrote them myself. If you want more structured learning into how AI kind of works, you can go to the resource hub, and there's a bunch in here, and I'd recommend the Ultimate AI Learning Guide and the 8 Levels of AI. 8 Levels of AI is basically broken down to different stages. Starting level 1 is basically using ChatGPT, whereas level 8 is training neural networks from scratch, etc. Not everybody needs to go through all of these. In fact, you can do the most work here. And it's level 3, 4, 5. You don't need to be digging into the engineering of it all. Maybe you do, it's up to you. And then the stuff on vibe coding, etc. So that's all on aiwithkyle.com. Sabrina also has loads of good stuff. Sabrina, you probably know Sabrina. Great thumbnail, Sabrina. So she's got a Substack, and she has a Discord community. It's a women's only community, but if that's applicable, go for it. But she has a bunch of free courses and guides, etc. And I'd also recommend checking out Nate B. Jones. Also has a Substack, and he's on TikTok primarily because he's got some good stuff here. If you are wanting to follow people and keep up to date, Ethan Mollick is fantastic. He has a Substack called One Useful Thing, and he's on LinkedIn, Twitter. So I'd recommend following those people. For courses specifically, Deep Learning AI has lots of free courses. You can pay and get certification, or you can do them for free. The one that everyone starts with is this, Generative AI for Everyone. Good place to start to learn about how it works. And then from here, there are just an absolute goldmine of different courses. So we go Agent Skills of Anthropic, Gemini command line interface, multi-vector image retrieval. It goes from very basic to advanced. So deeplearning.ai is fantastic. Be aware that lots of these are third-party vendors. This one is with Google. This one's with Snowflake. This one's with SAP. I would personally filter to only the ones by Deep Learning. These are the collaborators. So if you just click on deeplearning.ai, you can see just their ones. The reason being that the other ones, like from Google or Google Cloud, is mainly going to be about, here's how to use our product, which is fine if you want to use that product, but otherwise it's going to give you a narrow view and you'll think, oh, I must use Databricks for this. So if you go for the ones by deeplearning.ai, that will be generic. So just scrolling through. So I'm just reading, there's a great conversation going on, but I'll let you guys have that conversation. Switch off comments, we can't see anything at the bottom of the screen. Not on TikTok, come over to YouTube and you can see everything. Cool. I think that is, God, so many. The TikTok interface is terrible. It just throws lots of stuff at me. At least nobody's sticking hats on me. You can also animate and make things fly around my head. It's a lot. Awesome. Thank you guys. So we covered a fair amount today. The continuing drama between Anthropic, Department of War, OpenAI, Trump stirring things up, the slight issue of a Middle Eastern conflict. It's a busy week in artificial intelligence, a busy week in the world as a whole. This will continue to develop. Anything I say now will probably be wrong. I've also looked at the fact a lot of people are moving from OpenAI over to Claude. Claude has been struggling with that influx of new users. But if you have tried to use Claude and haven't been able to because of the servers going down, I would say just be a bit patient and try again later, and it should be all okay. Fantastic. I'm giving a webinar tonight, in about 6 hours from now, talking about how you can start to teach AI to businesses and you can get paid very well. You do not need to have a PhD in machine learning. In fact, that will make it harder for you to be successful here. And I'll talk about that on the webinar because I have a story about that. And that's going to be at 6 p.m. tonight, London time. And that's free to sign up. If you go to aiwithkyle.com/webinar, you'll be able to sign up. There's also one on Thursday. If you can't make it because of times, I know some people are in Asia and it would be 2 a.m. or whatever, then we'll send a recording out to you. Make sure you subscribe. So there's a whole bunch of free resources. I previewed a few of them. There's too much stuff on this website and I need to work out a better way to display it all because there's so much stuff. But if you sign up, you get the AI readiness course, you get access to 100+ playbooks, how to use AI to start and grow businesses, a community, tool suite, glossary, etc. And that's all free. It's just your email address on aiwithkyle.com. Thank you so much, everybody.